adjust my mic. All right.
So I haven't had a chance to look at this at all. I hate to say it. Sorry.
It's okay. It's mostly Jaime.
Okay.
It's all right. We'll just wing it like we always do.
Yeah. Why should this be any different? All right. So hey everybody, welcome to episode 291 of the More Than Just Code podcast. My name is Tim Mitra and I am in Toronto, Ontario. And I'm joined once again by Mark Rubin down in San Jose, California.
Hello.
And we have Jaime Lopez Jr. on the line in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
Or actually Everett, Washington, right?
Yeah, it's in the suburbs.
The suburb? Oh, so it's like the burbs of Seattle?
Yeah, it's like, I think this might have come up on the show once before, but it's like that SNL skit where it's like, I'm from Dublin. Oh, I'm not actually from Dublin. I'm from some other place, but nobody would know where that is. So I just say I'm from Dublin.
Oh, right. Yeah. I think that is an SNL thing.
Yeah, it was a Mike Myers skit.
Oh, I'm from Dublin. Yeah, that one. Yeah. Right.
But doesn't everybody do that? Doesn't everybody say when they're from the metropolitan area of some city and you're outside of the immediate area of that city, don't you always say you're just from that city? That's what I do.
Yeah, technically, yeah. I mean, technically, before we became a mega or amalgamation of what they call a mega city or whatever, I'm technically in East York right now, right? And it used to have its own city hall just north of me, but now it's all, they got rid of all the city halls and just went down to the one metro hall downtown, right? And when I grew up in Etobicoke, and yeah, it's the same sort of thing, right?
When I say I'm from Boston, I actually only lived in Boston for about a year when I was a baby and when I was in college. Other than that, I lived in the suburbs of Boston. But if I said the name, nobody would ever know what it was. So
yeah,
kind of no point of saying it.
And what is it? What is the name?
Framingham.
Okay, that sounds about right.
Yeah, you don't know what it is?
I think I've seen some like small town pride, and people say, "Oh, I'm from blah blah blah." Like, I am also from Texas. I have no idea where that is. Is it near Dallas? Is it near Austin, Houston? Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Texas
now
is
I know.
Huge, yeah. Like you're El Paso, right?
Yeah, which is one of the bigger cities, and there's like not terribly many cities around it to be confused about.
And it's also pretty much geographically as far away from what people think of as Texas as you could possibly be and still be in Texas, right?
Oh, absolutely. Sure, absolutely. Yeah. It is closer to Phoenix, Arizona, and I believe closer to Los Angeles, California, than it is to
Tucson,
Houston.
Right? Isn't it very close to Tucson?
Tucson and Phoenix. Yeah, it's way closer to Tucson than it is to Houston.
Yeah.
But Houston and Dallas are on the other side of the state, like, right?
That's right.
And are they close together, or are they separated too by distance?
No, they've got quite a bit distance, but it's drivable. There's like a whole effort there to have a wide freeway and like triangle going on with Austin, Dallas, and Houston. A lot of, I guess right now traffic would be really good, right? Just given the pandemic, there's probably not as many people out there, but that is a lot of merchandise and commerce going on.
Yeah, I wonder how much. I haven't really looked at traffic to see how little. I mean, I took a picture of. I went to the office a week ago, Friday. We've since been told we can't go into the city, right? But and I took a picture up Bay Street, which goes towards Toronto City Hall, and normally, and it was like 11 o'clock in the morning, and so normally it would be packed. There would be like hundreds of people in the street, and cars and streetcars, and people blocking the intersection, and there was like one guy and a couple of cars. That's quite a difference. It's almost like a really sleepy Sunday morning kind of look, if you saw the picture. Anyway, that's the sort of new normal, I guess, right? So from last week, we had some fact check. For those of people in Montreal who are, had conniptions over my mentioning the Montreal Alouettes last week, the Alouettes were still are a CFL team. They were formed in 1946. Of course, that's a Canadian Football League for those of you driving at home. It's a 115-yard field, and we have 3 downs instead of 4. So some people say it's harder to play. Anyway, not very many teams in the league, though, but Montreal Alouettes was a sort of always around. They sort of folded up in 1981 or changed their name to the Concords, and they did that for 5 years, and then they folded up again in 1987, which is where they became the brunt of the joke in Canada here for those of us for about 10 years or so. And then they had a rebirth in 1996-97 season, and they continue to play to this day. And I think they last won the Grey Cup, which is our Super Bowl in 2000, I think. So anyway, Montreal Alouettes. Do you have any Ask MTJC, Jaime?
I didn't see any.
All right, no. Well, I think not officially not Ask MTJC, but I saw a picture yesterday of a new Acer computer that's come out. I don't know if you guys saw the pictures I posted on Twitter, but remember I was talking about we were talking about the OLED display on the touch bar, and I sort of said I could see it like where they would expand that to make like maybe an entire keyboard or something like that. So Acer's come out with a couple of computer configurations. One that's almost the size of the trackpad that we have on our computer, but it's a complete display. So it's got icons and things like that on it. So I'm sure it's sort of like an OLED track bar. I don't know if it's OLED, and they've also come out another model where they pushed the keyboard down like 3 or 4 inches towards the user, and above them is like a 4 or 5 inch wide and the length and the width of the computer like extension of the monitor, like as I envisioned the touch bar could grow to massive proportions. So I just thought it was funny that I don't know, Acer must be a fan of the show and listens to us and takes ideas from us, right? But it just looked completely wrong. But anyway, there you go. In the follow up here, we've got a quick thing here. Tim Cook put out a message today on his Twitter account. I don't know if you guys have heard or not, but large companies like Facebook and Google and Apple who have disaster plans have put aside for reasons safety equipment, which include like masks and stuff like that. And so apparently Tim Cook has put out a notice today, working from home, that Apple is sending 10 million masks to be used in the healthcare industry in the United States for them to use. Because there's a shortage of masks. I was talking to a friend of mine last week about cranking up our 3D printers to help build visors and stuff like that for the healthcare industry. Because apparently that's one of the biggest problems and one of the reasons why we're trying to flatten the curve. It's because of the lack of medical supplies. And you have some COVID-related news, Jaime.
Yeah, this is a follow-up here of, we had said that, Google I.O. has gone online, remote only, and the follow-up is that it is completely canceled for 2020.
So no, they were doing an online thing, weren't they?
Yeah, and I guess the idea prior to things getting worse in various states, including California, doing shelter-in-place lockdown was, I guess they thought, well, we won't have a ton of people coming here, but we'll still have people, on stage and doing the production and everything, and we'll just stream it out to the world, is what I'm speculating here. And now that people can't even congregate in any sort of meaningful way, it seems like Google said, yeah, this is a little bit too far. We can't go any further than this. So
yeah, it's interesting, like you were saying last week about like the hosts and stuff like that. I know that Jimmy Fallon is doing his monologue from his living room with his two daughters crawling all over him, and I've seen other ones where I think the Talking Dead show last week was done like with Zoom or like a Google Hangout where they had talking heads basically talking about the show, and news reporters and stuff like that are clearly working from home, with green screens or their libraries and stuff like that. So it's kind of, if you're doing a one-off sort of broadcast, a person with an iPhone or I even saw a couple of musicians this week who were playing music out of their homes so to entertain people basically, right? And it was like, I think who's married to Nicole Kidman, what's his name, the country music guy, Carl Urban?
Keith Urban. Carl Urban is the guy who plays the doctor.
I was so close.
Bones.
Yes, I know.
But yeah, it's
but
funny
he's Australian too, is he though? Yeah. But so he was basically playing some stuff, and Nicole Kidman was dancing around and from their home studio, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like, if you have the gear to do it, by the way, I don't know if people have figured this out or not, but this would be a great time to start a podcast, right? Because how else are you going to do this, right? Like the three of us are sitting in our respective homes, and we have been for the last 6 years, right? So anyway, I don't know if you saw, Mark, but I posted a picture on Twitter of the three of us from 360 iDev from, I think, the first time we actually met, and we're sitting not in side by each, we're sitting behind each other for some reason. I posted it up saying we've been social distancing since 2014.
Yeah.
I actually think I remember what happened there. It was probably a after lunch session, and we were chatting long enough that we got, pretty late prior to sitting at a session. And those were probably the only chairs we had available.
Yeah, could be. We'll stick with that story. I vaguely remember taking the picture, but yeah, I thought it was funny the three of us are sitting in line like that. That's why I took the picture. But unfortunately, I took it with my old Otter box case that had a bad problem because it would get dust on the lens from being in my pocket, and so it's a really out of focus kind of picture, unfortunately. Oh well. Anyway, that's what we looked like in 2014. If those of you driving at home want to have a look on my Twitter account. All right, so Jaime, you got another piece for us?
Yeah, there's a little bit of follow-up on, you can see the iPad Pro, the new one, in augmented reality in all its glory. I went with the Daring Fireball John Gruber link because that's where I saw it, just to give it credit. But it is on Apple's website. You do have to use something that's compatible with ARKit, like an iPhone or an iPad, so this won't work on your Mac. But if you want to see what that would look like on your desk, it's pretty nifty.
Cool, yeah.
Yeah, similar idea to the Mac Pro and a couple other devices that they've made available.
That works on just about any iPad, right? It doesn't have to be specifically one that supports AR, right?
I think it has a support ARKit. It doesn't have to necessarily support the newest updates.
Oh,
to
I see.
ARKit.
So it has to be like iOS 12 or 13, right? Or 11 maybe, I think?
Yeah, right. Whenever, I guess 11? Is that when ARKit first came out?
Yeah, it's got to be because we're...
Third iteration, right?
Third iteration, yeah. I think we're spoiling our own show. Yeah, anyway, cool. So my next piece here is another, I guess, sort of wrapping up on the theme of the month. Bill Gates in 2015 did a TED Talk about the next outbreak, and basically he was saying that in 2015 that he thought the next big issue for the world, and this is part of what he and Melinda have been doing for the last few years with their millions and millions of dollars, is giving back to society. But he has a really interesting talk on how he at the time predicted that the next major outbreak would be a virus related, and that it would basically at that time, and we weren't ready for it. And he kind of outlays some plans. I mean, of course, this is not Bill Gates thinking himself. I'm sure he probably had consulting with a lot of people, but about how the military could prepare for it and all that kind of stuff. And it's a really interesting talk. I think TED Talks are like 5 minutes. Yeah, I mean, if you got 5 minutes to spare, check it out. It's really, really interesting to see. I'd seen this talk before, but I never really paid attention to it. But now, kind of regretting that I didn't. But there you go. So it's an interesting talk on TED Talk. Basically, the next outbreak, we're not ready, by Bill Gates. Over to you, Jaime. Next
one is one we were chatting privately about, like, how did we miss this? And I apologize.
Oh, yeah.
But it's in the show notes for those of you driving at home. It's a Verge article with links to Apple's video showing how the iPad's new trackpad actually works. And it's really cool. And it's very much done in the style of like a marketing / WWDC video. So if you imagine in my head, this is what Apple might do for WWDC this year, where they have, Craig Federighi going and, demoing and explaining how the software works. And it's pretty neat. Seeing how the cursor works and how the interface adjusts is pretty nice, pretty explanatory. It doesn't translate very well to an audio-only medium like a podcast, but that's why we have show notes.
So we have some real-time follow-up on that, and that is that it's not just for the new trackpad that, with the new, what do you call it, smart keyboard, what are they calling it? Magic Keyboard, right? It actually works with if you have a Magic Mouse or any Bluetooth mouse or trackpad, like in fact I've got the Magic Trackpad here as well, and I've updated my OS to 13.4, and so I was able to load up and connect my trackpad. Initially I'd connected my Magic Mouse to try it out because I'm working from home and a lot of our tools, I got my old Logitech keyboard out, snapped the iPad into it, and then quickly found that it's really awkward using the keyboard and then having to reach up and touch the screen every time you want to like focus on a field or something like that, like a text field, because you can't. And various apps support the keyboard differently, but the keyboard actually on the iPad makes it very similar to a Mac in that a lot of keys work like copy and paste, and you can Command Tab to switch between applications and that kind of stuff. So it's really kind of cool. But adding the trackpad to it, and you now get that round cursor that it shows in the video, and also of course when you're editing, you get the nice cursor, and you get the hover effect. And there's a couple of new things, on hover and on hover event, on hover effect maybe, where you can add those to your app so that like essentially it's if you've used an Apple TV before, when you hover over an icon and you kind of wiggle or move your finger back and forth on the cursor, the icon kind of shimmers, like it kind of jiggles a bit. So when and you'll see it in the video when Craig Federighi is talking about it, you can see that when you hover over an element that's like a button or tappable, the cursor does change and it kind of creates a little box around it and animates it, right? So it's pretty cool. I mean, so it's almost like the only thing it's missing is Xcode, right? From the whole experience. Some apps don't behave the same way as you would expect. Like some apps are like right out of the box are great with it. Other apps like things like Google Doc, there were some issues with it. Some of the Microsoft stuff doesn't the cursor doesn't kind of work 100%, but it's like 99% out of the box a great experience. So yeah, you don't have to wait for the new magic thing. If you you have a trackpad lying around or a Magic Mouse and you've got an iPad already, you can update and try it out right away. So, and it's super slick. Typical Apple, wonderful user experience engineering, right?
Yeah, I haven't updated myself because I'm waiting for a day or two, especially given that, this is normally good advice, I think. You don't need to update on day one unless you're willing to be on the bleeding edge. But given that the Apple stores are shut down at the moment, I'm even more sort of curious about how and when I'm going to update.
Yeah, this is an interesting, I was thinking about that too, because that's an interesting point in that, we've been spoiled for the last 3 or 4 years or even longer, I guess. How long has the App Store been around? 10 years, I guess, the Apple Store, right? Because, as the hardware comes out, you could go to the Apple Store on day one and you could actually look at the stuff and try it out. They always made sure that they had stuff on the floor. So this is the first time we're going to be buying, for a while anyway, for the next couple of weeks anyway, an iPad and a Magic Keyboard sight unseen. And the same thing with the new MacBook Air, right? That's a lot of money to throw down without, just on faith. I mean, I know we did it with the iPhones when they first came out, right? But think about it. It's been a while since we've not been able to go and kick the tires, right?
Yeah, but do you actually do that?
I do.
Really?
Yeah. I always go to the Eaton Center and check out the latest stuff that comes out for sure. Yeah. Don't you? You don't go to the Apple Store and just look at the stuff and try it out?
Nope. I only go to the mall if I have to.
Yeah. I guess it's not quite the mall in where you are. I mean, you can go to the Palo Alto store. I guess it's a bit far for you, right? But
yeah, I could. There are multiple stores around, and only a couple of them are actually in the mall. But
yeah, the one near you at what's that place called? Where I
Valley
stayed,
Fair
Santana
Mall.
Row.
That's there's two malls that are kind of right next to each other. One is Santana Row. That's kind of the upscale outdoor mall, and then there's the traditional mall across the street, which is the Valley Fair Mall.
Right. Yeah.
That's where the Apple Store is, in the Valley Fair Mall.
Yeah, I haven't seen a new Apple Store because when I was there, they were still working on it. So yeah,
it doesn't look any different. They've done a lot of renovations on the mall, but the Apple Store itself doesn't really look any different.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about it, but they've redone two stores here. They did the Eaton Center store. I think we talked about that on the show. I did actually go and check it out a couple of days later, but they just opened a new one here. I think Fairview Mall is the name of the mall that is one of the first Apple stores in Toronto. They just recently expanded and doubled the size of it and all that kind of stuff. So they're getting quite big. I guess our stores were always ridiculously crowded and like not as deep as like the new store is the size of the Palo Alto store that you took me to, where I went to by myself, I guess, right? That's where you met Tim, the other Tim. Is that all we want to say about the trackpad working, Jaime?
Yeah, it's a nice video. You're right that you can at least try out how the new cursor stuff works independent of that. Hopefully we'll find somebody who actually does end up with the hardware and get their opinions on that. Get a little mini review. I'm not looking to buy. I don't have the right iPad Pro. I'm not looking to upgrade. Whatever year of iPad Pro is pretty good. So I'm sure in a few years on this very show, I'll be telling you all how amazed I am at this keyboard integration, just like the watch integration that I was so happy about a couple weeks ago.
Well, I got to say, I've had keyboards on my on my iPads before, and they were okay, right? But this Logitech, this smart keyboard technology with the little 3-pin connector on the side of the iPad, the Logitech one and the what do you call it? The smart keyboard, saying the wrong name, but that one, they're both pretty slick. I've tried them out in the stores, and of course I own this one, the Logitech one, right? But the integration is really, really nice. I mean, it does sort of bring the iPad sort of, make it more Mac-like in that sense, right? Or more computer-like, I guess, or Surface-like, you add the pen to that, and you've got like it's a really awesome computing experience, right? Because you can lay it flat, or you can use it as a keyboard, like propped up, and it is pretty slick. So adding trackpad and mouse to the whole mix just makes it even better, right? So one thing is odd about it, though. I noticed yesterday. So I had hooked up my Magic Mouse to the iPad. I hadn't tried by the way, scrolling doesn't work on the Magic Mouse, right? I find that I had to still reach it with my finger and scroll the screens, or like table views and stuff like that. But the trackpad works like wonderfully. 2 fingers scrolling works really well. But what I was going to say was last night I had it on my desk, and I was during the day I was working at my job. I was using the mouse, but at the end of the day, when I went and sat on the couch and I just took the iPad by itself, I was just to have it sit on my lap. The little little cursor stays on the screen, even though the mouse isn't active. And so it's that's just a minor annoyance that this little round dot, sort of persists on your screen the entire time. So that's just one odd thing I noticed. That and the fact that scrolling doesn't work with the mouse. Mises. Anyway. All right. What's next?
Next one is a little bit of follow-up. We had talked about the fact that Safari was going to go sort of all in on blocking third-party cookies, tracking cookies, and they have. They've gone through. So the Safari Intelligent Tracking Prevention, ITP, is...
This is part of the new update? Or
I believe it is, but I haven't updated Catalina either for very similar reasons. So I don't know. I haven't checked it out.
Yeah. Well, something we're looking forward to for a while, right?
It's good for privacy in the industry. Apple's Safari is not the heavy hitter on the block that clearly belongs to Chrome, but it's a step in the right direction.
Right. I noticed a sidebar ad here. I don't know if you get the same sidebar ad on your browser there, Jaime, with Mr. Patrick Stewart, Sir Patrick Stewart.
Oh, I get that, actually.
Do you? Should we do a spoiler for SpockCast there, Jaime?
Yeah. for Mark's benefit, you can get a free month of CBS All Access using whatever that special code is. I don't have it in front of me.
I think it's gift.
Yeah. So Mark, I don't think you've seen Discovery or Picard, so you just binge that while you're stuck at home.
And yeah, I do have more time at home, although it doesn't seem like I have any more free time for some reason.
No, yeah.
But yeah, maybe I should.
Yeah. Then you can listen to SpockCast as well, right?
That's true. I think I was binge watching I finished it, I guess I should say. I was binge watching Mr. Robot. I had never watched it, so really? I watched all 4 seasons.
Nice.
It's good. It's worth watching.
Had you watched you hadn't seen the first one yet, or
I have
first
now.
Season? Okay.
Yeah, I haven't caught up to the current season. I just have that in the queue. It's next though.
I think the first season's the best. Like,
yeah,
they
I think so
just,
too.
They could have just ended it there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fourth season got a little bit weird at the end.
Yeah. You're right. It did.
Yeah.
Spoilers for those of you at home. It did kind of make me kind of go, what?
Where are they going with this?
Yeah. So, which way is up? Which way is down?
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
All right. What's going on with all the email I'm getting, Jaime?
Yeah, you may or may not have noticed on your developer account that if you want to support the 20 new countries starting next month, you will need to sign your life away in the new license agreement by April 10th to get access to 20 new countries that you can sell in the Apple App Store.
So what I was saying about this I got spammed by Apple at least 10 times to the same email account, which I thought was odd, that this was coming. And then I went over to my developer account, signed the agreement, but it sort of implied that there was an extra step that I wasn't sure. I was supposed to go check some checkbox or something about the stores. Have you guys had a look at this yet?
I don't think I got this email.
I actually haven't done it on my... I got the email about it, and I haven't done it on my
email.
My local account, but I can check that now.
Mm-hmm. I got 8 emails about it to the same... And I know I have 4 active developer accounts, but still, it's just odd that I kept getting the same thing over and over again.
Oh, okay. 2-factor authentication. Fair enough.
So it says to have your apps appear in this new country, your account holder first needs to accept the program license agreement by signing their life away, like you said. Yeah. And if you have paid applications agreement, the account holder would also need to accept this updated agreement in App Store Connect. I didn't see it in App Store Connect when I went over there.
Okay. So far it looks pretty standard. It's just showing me the PDF, which I am carefully reading line by line. And by the magic of online, I'm finished. Agree. Yeah. I just clicked agree once. Seems to be fine.
Yeah.
And it's done.
And you're supposed to, did you go over to App Store Connect?
Oh, yeah, it does. It does ask me to go to our users or listeners are enthralled by this. I'm sure.
Don't worry. We cut this. We cut all this mumbly stuff out.
We can fill it with me reading the list of the names as best I can, because folks might be wondering.
Okay, why don't you do that?
So the 20 are Afghanistan, Gabon, Ivory Coast, Georgia, Maldives, Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Cameroon, Iraq, Kosovo, Libya, Montenegro, Morocco, Mozambique, Myanmar, Nauru, Rwanda, Tonga, Zambia, and Vanuatu. Tim, maybe you can help us with Ivory Coast. I didn't say it in French because I don't speak French.
It's Ivory Coast.
Côte d'Ivoire? I don't know how that's pronounced.
I think it's Côte off the top of my head. Is it C-O-T-E?
C-O-T-E, new word, D apostrophe I-V-O-I.
You sort of d'Ivory D'ivoire, probably. D'ivoire.
No, wouldn't it be something like Ivoire?
Yeah, d'Ivoire, yeah. So
Côte d'Ivoire.
But what I'm saying about the D and the I sort of meld into one, right?
Yeah.
So d'Ivoire.
Côte d'Ivoire.
Like it's actually DE and then space and then Ivory, but the apostrophe makes it shorter. Yeah.
Okay, I did have to check a whole bunch of boxes here.
Like it's funny about these agreements. I realize you're supposed to read them and you're supposed to print them out and whatever, right? But what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's true.
Not agree?
Yeah.
That is between you and your
money.
lawyer.
Yeah.
Keep a lawyer on retainer
Sweet
just so I can keep up with all these agreements every time I update iOS.
All right. So I guess it's more of the Jaime Lopez show. So welcome to the Jaime Lopez show. What else we got for us, Jaime?
As sort of teased earlier, we do have new versions of iOS and iPadOS. The 13.4 has gone out of beta and is now official. It has some new features, the aforementioned mouse and trackpad support. It's also got the iCloud Drive folder sharing, the Dropbox-like sort of thing that was promised and taken away when I guess it did very terrible things during the betas.
Which?
The iCloud Drive folder sharing. I think I remember during the summer that there were people who tried it during the beta and all sorts of bad stuff happened. Like
I can go in here and share a
assume.
folder with you guys? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, very similar to Dropbox, or Notes
really?
lets you do this too, right? We've had shared notes as an example.
Okay, from this folder here. I don't see any way to share it. Okay, well, I'll take your word for it.
And you are up to date because I haven't updated, so I can't actually try this myself. And this is from the Files app that you're trying?
Yeah, I'm in the Files app, yeah. Well, cool. Yeah, the Dropbox thing would be kind of nice too. Dropbox text sharing or whatever. Or even just to create a link in a file and then send the link to somebody. Because I think they do that now with, if you send a large attachment to somebody, it'll say, this attachment is too big for most email accounts. Do you want to use your iCloud to drop it to them, right? And I think what it does, it puts a link into the email and slurps the file up to iCloud somehow. Is that not how it works? You know what I mean? You have no idea what I'm talking about, do you?
I think I was trying to keep track of where the file is at any point in time to make sure I understood.
Right. Okay.
There's an even more detailed link that has, this is from Ars Technica, that has a whole bunch more details on what was released for iOS and macOS. Other big things are the universal purchase support, so singular purchase of apps across iPhone, iPod Touch, iPad, Mac, and Apple TV. We had talked about that before, but now it's actually released. That's an option.
The folder sharing is in Catalina, not in the iPad.
Oh, really? You can't do it from the iPad? I thought I saw that in notes that you could.
It said in the first page of this article you just sent, it said, it's a smaller update for macOS Catalina. Users who downloaded 10.15.4 will get iCloud Drive folder sharing on the platform as well. You can import Google Chrome passwords into iCloud Keychain. New features for the Pro Display XDR. For those of you who have that kind of mad money for that, eh? But you got the release notes printed out here as well on page 2.
You can also see watchOS 6.2 has the ECG app on Apple Watch Series 4 or later, now available in Chile, New Zealand, and Turkey.
Right. Oh, look, there's more Memoji, my favorite thing.
I think it says a lot about that when I don't think it was even in the article. Like, it was listed, but I don't think they showed any examples.
Oh, the fact that they didn't call it out?
Yeah, they didn't. Usually an article like this will have the emoji leading the way, the carrot that gets people to update, but apparently not. Maybe Memoji are an old-fashioned thing. Next year, Wemoji, you and your friends,
right?
Combine stickers.
Yeah. So the thing we've been waiting for, Mark, the feature we've been waiting for, the time-synced lyrics in Apple Music on Mac is now available.
Woohoo!
I mean, this is like a really good time though, because when you think about all these people who can't go to like karaoke bars, you can just do it at home.
Oh, you can do karaoke at home. Yeah, that's true.
Karaoke.
Yeah. Seems less silly now. It's well timed.
Yeah, it's funny when we go to Denver. There's a karaoke bar we always go to do karaoke with Gene McDonald, and I got an email from them saying, "Oh, by the way, here's our COVID update about being closed and stuff." So funny. Oh, OAuth for Outlook.com. Well, how about that? In-app purchases for Apple Watches. Oh, this is new. We've never had in-app purchases on Apple Watch before. Yeah,
it was definitely something we definitely talked about from WWDC, but now it is finally launched. I gotta admit, I don't do a lot of purchasing of anything on my watch itself. No. I use my watch to purchase stuff, but I don't buy a whole lot, so I had no clue that this hadn't actually launched yet.
Well, yeah, we have to go out of our way and find some app that's like Apple Watch only, and then see it. But by the way, the EKG app is now, or Apple Watch Series 4 is now available in Chile, New Zealand, and Turkey, as well as the irregular heart rhythm notifications are now available in those 3 countries as well. That's a big improvement, I guess.
That'll be fun when you're editing this episode.
Why?
Because you added a little bit off of what I'd said, but I had already covered WatchOS 6.0.
Oh, did you? Oh, sorry. Well, thanks for helping me get a faster edit out of that. Yeah, I did hear you say Chile and New Zealand. You mentioned it. That's true. I'm just scanning through the notes, seeing if anything stands out.
And another new thing is that the Watch ECG is now available in Chile, New Zealand, and somewhere else.
And Turkey? Really?
And Turkey, yeah.
Wow. The time for the politically incorrect joke now?
Sure.
So England got hungry and went to eat turkey, but slipped on the grease and broke all the china? No? Had you never heard that before?
I've heard something like that. I don't know if it was exactly that one, but very similar. Yeah.
I think I might have started the beginning wrong. England got hungry, went to eat turkey, but slipped on the grease and broke all the china. All right. So tell us what's happening in the world of ARKit, Jaime.
Yeah, 3.5 of ARKit is available. That's going to make use of the new LiDAR scanner and depth sensing system on your brand spanking new iPad Pro. So as this wonderful developer / marketing page talks about how scene geometry is going to give you topological maps, you're going to get, instant AR. So instead of sort of waving your phone around and hoping that it figures out where everything is,
right.
it'll just know that from the sensor. And as part of that, you get improved motion capture and better occlusion of people. So when people walk around things that they should normally be visibly blocked by in AR, it should work better. There's new sample code too.
Right. And that's why they have the model here standing in front of the objects, right?
Yeah, I assume.
Was that a problem before?
It's something they've had before. I believe it is improved based on the new sort of cloud, point map that they can get off the new sensor.
Yeah.
So it's not just doing visual tricks to figure out where things are. It's like actually getting real data from the sensor, telling it, how far away are things, where is the shape of this thing.
And did you say instantaneous, like room detection or space detection? Instant AR. Oh, with LiDAR, right.
Yeah. So anything that you're using ARKit now, it usually has move your phone around on this flat surface so we can sort of figure out where everything is and start making a map. The LiDAR sensor apparently just gives them that, just about instantaneously. So you don't have to do that. It's just ready to roll as soon as you start it up.
So I guess you could say it's less hand wavy, right?
Yeah.
Well, Tim, you're on a roll
hand wavy.
I thought I'd get a reaction on Jaime. He always says hand waving, right? Oh, well. I try.
No.
I've been locked up in a house for like a week.
Yeah, everyone's going a little stir crazy, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So you can check out some of the new code samples. If you look at the developer docs at the bottom, search for world tracking, and you can search on visualizing and interacting with a reconstructed scene. It has some new code that says iOS 13.4 plus, Xcode 11.4 plus. That was updated as well. Gives you an idea how this stuff works. I haven't tried this out myself, and I don't have the device that would actually make use of this.
So it's interesting that Apple is still heavily invested in AR, right? I mean, it's been around for a long time, but it's just interesting that it's just now really coming. Is it because of the equipment, or have we now
I do think, yes, the hardware has finally gotten to a point where it's pretty viable to do things on a cell phone, where it wasn't necessarily the case a few years ago. And I do wonder if they're leading up to something bigger. Is it the rumored AR goggles from Apple or something else? I don't know, but I kind of suspect there's something coming.
Yeah, because it's interesting. When I was looking at this, like, it's got to be, I guess 5 years ago, like 2014, 2015 time frame. I was looking at a lot of AR applications, because there was the Target thing where you have a target printed and you could have it, like a game could pop out of a printed target or even a hand-drawn target, as long as you match the pattern you were supposed to draw. And as well, I remember there were some AR apps where if you were like on the street, you could hold your phone up and look through, like use it like a viewfinder, and as you moved around, you'd see location targets showing up, like, pharmacy over here and post office over there, kind of like a real world, heads up display kind of thing. And I kind of wonder if that maybe is also where they're going. Maybe the Apple car is going to have this whole heads up display thing going on, right? Interesting stuff. Interesting to see that this is like now, coming to fore. Because one of the big challenges was, as well, was like, okay, so if you have like a 3D object object, and you, like a character you're animating, do we have the tools to sort of, develop those as well, right? Because, it's all well and good to have a library of 3D objects, but, I think as creative people, you kind of want to make your own characters and that kind of stuff, right? So your own game pieces and so on and so forth. I wonder if they're going to come out with an AR game kit, who knows?
I don't know that they'll do that because there's pretty big competition there already, right? There's
right.
Unity and what's the other one? Unreal.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And you can use those. Those are the standards for doing exactly the kind of thing that you're talking about, right? Building all the characters and all that, and all the objects. Yeah. And then you can export that stuff into an iOS-ish app, I believe, right?
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because I was thinking about Blender. Blender is like the free 3D modeling tool, right?
Yep.
We used to pay hundreds of dollars for apps that were like sort of Photoshop-ish that were very expensive to get into 3D modeling, and then Blender comes along and does it for free, right? So it's an open source tool. Yeah, interesting to see. Well, you'll have to see where this goes. Could be, because Google's been doing the Google Goggle thing for a while, right? And,
I think they kind of gave up on that, didn't they?
Yeah, but then what's the one that Oculus is that?
That's Facebook.
How's Facebook doing with that one? That's still around?
Well, Oculus is more VR.
Oh, right.
Yeah, AR.
Right. Gotcha.
The difference being with VR, you're immersed in an Unreal environment, and it's creating the environment in your visual field, so it looks as if you're somewhere other than where you are, as opposed to AR, which is using the real environment that you see through your phone or through some goggles or whatever, and it's just adding stuff, augmenting stuff to it, placing extra objects in your environment.
Right, and something like the Microsoft HoloLens is an AR sort of thing where you have a little piece of glass in front of your face that shows you what would be overlaid, as Mark said, on top of the real world.
And how's that Holo doing? Have you seen anything with that in the last couple of years?
It is in its second edition, I want to say, developer edition, really focusing on commercial and industrial usage and not, be at home and play Minecraft sort of stuff. So it's more for, hey, we're going to do this medical procedure. All right, well, let's take a look and see what that would look like on the actual patient. Or we're designing this new widget or this new vehicle. All right, well, let's see what that would look like if we're actually there.
So can we have a sidebar for a second here? A SpockCast sidebar?
Sure.
Have you watched the first episode of Westworld yet, Jaime?
Not season 3. No, I have not.
Well, you know how the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, had that sort of Terminator vision, like when he looked at things, he could see like displays and he'd see numbers and he could, figure out weights and distributions and, densities and stuff like that just by looking at things. Mm-hmm. There's a scene in the new one where I don't think it's a huge spoiler to let you know that one of the I don't know what they call them, replicants or whatever, has gotten off the farm and she's wandering around, right?
So they show us one of the hosts from their point of view.
Yeah, one of the hosts. Yeah, that's what they call them, hosts. Yeah, she's walking around in the real world, apparently the real world, but it may not be the real world as a matter of fact. But anyway, she's walking around in the real world, and at one point she puts a pair of glasses on so she can get the readout of what she's looking at. Like she sees a person there and she puts these glasses. And I'm thinking to myself, like, wait a minute, aren't you already a host? Why do you need to have augmented reality glasses? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm unclear, having not seen the episode, where they're going with it. The Terminator one and let's throw in RoboCop, a very similar thing. Those were always conceits for the visual medium that is film. It's for the audience's benefit. Like, I don't think you would make a GUI for a machine. It would very clearly be a headless sort of way of running things.
Right.
So I can't speak to what exactly is going on with that character.
Yeah. Well, again, maybe this is like you said. Maybe it's a conceit. She has to put the glasses on to sort of let the audience know that she's turning on this supervision. Right. So I just found it odd. Mind you, I guess the other thing too is like some of the humans they put on, like, it looks like a pair of reading glasses or a pair of like just regular glasses, and yet that gives them an augmented experience, right? And the future is going to be really cool when it gets here,
if it gets here.
Yeah, we're just going to get through the Walking Dead period right now, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the more exciting stuff, honey.
Yeah, and happier news, Swift 5.2 is officially released.
Officially, okay.
Yeah, that includes the things we've talked about before, the key path expressions as functions, as well as callable values of user-defined nominal types. But you're not here for that. You know what you're really here for? The improved compiler diagnostics. And that's not a joke.
Really?
There are really silly, especially in Swift UI. You should be really happy for the Swift UI diagnostics changes where instead of telling you, hey, that text field error int is not convertible to CG float.
Right.
Question mark for, the optional. And you're like, what? I don't understand what's going on. What did I do wrong with my life? And
Wait, computer, wait, hang on, wait. You have a computer science degree and you're going, what?
Yeah. And these terrible choices I've made. And now it's like, oh, the compiler is now smart enough to say, oh, it turns out you're missing the argument for parameter text when you're instantiating that text field, which is what you'd want, right? So it doesn't add, in my view, like a ton of like, wow, that's brand new pizzazz. It's more like that's quality of life improvement that I can appreciate.
Yeah.
And they also talk about the code completion improvements. So they've made stuff faster. They've made it so it will autocomplete things it couldn't complete before. So this is one of those, I think you'll be very happy when you try it out.
Yeah, they're also adding fix-its, it says here, so that, if it does show up that spit out that error, it gives you a fix-it chance to correct the code as well.
Yeah, I think, this is just a continuing story. I think whenever, was it 2014 when Swift came out, very first came out, like in the betas, the big complaint was like, well, we've had really, really good compiler support and IntelliSense support, and auto-completion support for Objective-C, and this is a huge step back. And we'd said way back then, well, just patience, right? Like they've got to get the language set first, and then they can start doing, beyond the features, start doing the improvements to make things better. And Swift UI, I think, in some respects, took us back quite a bit, right? Because I think plain vanilla Swift had gotten pretty good about telling you what was wrong until you got to Swift UI, where the extra magic, Apple just had to get the features out first, and now they're coming back and they're refining what they've got. So I think the answer, this time next year, when people are asking like, well, is it feasible to use Swift UI for projects? I think we'll say yes for a much wider variety of projects than you would say currently.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it is. I did find it was kind of Swift 1.2 in terms of how the errors were displaying in current iterations of Swift UI. Like you're getting an error like miles away from where the actual error is, right? So
yeah, because you tend to have, with the function builders, you tend to have pretty long closures with a lot of stuff going on in a lot of cases. And often I'll see that the error is just put at either the beginning or the end of the closure, even though it really happened somewhere inside there.
Yeah. I find I lose track of the curly braces, They you get long, like you said, you get long passages where you're like, what is this going on here? And yet the error isn't like unexpected grace or whatever, right? It's something else.
Yeah, there is kind of a new pyramid of doom in some sense with Swift UI.
Yeah,
the nested views.
But it's interesting too from a style convention too. I don't know if you've noticed this, but a lot of people I've seen using Swift UI, they how you have the period syntax for each closure, like you mentioned, but you can. I would tend to leave them long, like have the line length run long, but everybody wants to wrap them. How do you do it stylistic? Do you put like a wrap, like put a return character and then continue to the next period, blah blah blah?
That's how I like to do it. I like to stack up my periods. Yeah.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, it's just easier to see that way.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, because it gets less confusing. All right, cool. But this key path thing is still a little bit fuzzy for me. I don't know about you guys.
It reminds me a whole lot of, key value coding? Not KVO, not key value observing. The key value coding, certainly in Objective-C, I'm not sure how it works in Swift, but I remember doing things like, I want to use some of these mathematical functions and we will run it over the top of this collection of things, right? Like to get like a normalized distribution or something. I can't remember what I was trying to do. Something in the math libraries of Cocoa. And it feels very similar to me, where I could say, hey, I will define a function here that will, average up all the values or properties that I have in this entity, this object, this struct. And so I can do things that say, hey, I would like to access this key path to a property that doesn't even really exist, but it can sort of exist. I think the example, do they have it here linked here? The example was like calculating, is this person of legal age to vote? or legal age to drink. Well, the object has a age property, and then it has a key path function that says, is legal of age to vote, is of age to drink. And you can just call that as a key path to just get the value you want rather than specifically calling the function.
Yeah, it's just a shortcut for if you have an array of things, of objects that all have some structure in common, and you want to access something embedded down in that structure without going through the whole mechanism of here's a reference to that object, and then that object has this property, and that property is some other object that has another property, and you want a property of that, and you have to dig down all the way and say it's just a shorthand for just applying that right at the top level. So you don't even have to deal with the fact that you actually have all these different objects. You just say, give me this value for all of my objects and do something to it.
Yeah, the example they have on the next page there, the key passes expressions as functions. Mm-hmm. Or if you click the head on that link, it kind of demonstrates how to use it in map, use it in filter, but then use the key path to shorten the boilerplate stuff, right? So /root value, right? Cool. We'll look into that a bit more. All right. Well, I guess we're at the pick stage of our show, right?
Indeed.
All right. So, okay. Why don't you hit us with your pick there, honey?
Yeah, I've got a couple. One is a remote only conference. And this is new because the lead developer is a series of conferences that occurs throughout the year in various places around the world. I can't remember which ones got consolidated. I want to say it was like the New York, San Francisco, and the London one for here in 2020. Just given where the pandemic is as of this recording, it's not feasible to do. So the fine folks at the Lead Dev have decided to do the Lead Dev live. So on April 7th and 8th of 2020, all of their talks will be all online and all free. This is a paid-for conference normally, but not this time. So I think that's something that folks can check out. They normally have their videos up pretty quick, actually, after the conference is done. So I'm assuming that even if you couldn't watch live, you will almost certainly be able to see on their website or their YouTube channel.
What's the gist of the conference? What kind of work do they do or cover?
So the lead developer is meant for folks who are in or looking to get into some sort of leadership position, whether that means being a team lead or a manager, like an engineering manager, or VP, CTO, varying degrees of leadership. It's meant for those types of folks to get together as a technical group and talk about common problems. Like, for example, I can't remember the name of this speaker from Slack, but she was talking about how do you scale an infrastructure team without ripping your hair out, right? Mm-hmm. How do you do that successfully as you go from a very small team to a very, very large team in a short period of time? And then they also do technical talks as well, right? Talks on Kubernetes or test-driven development, that sort of thing.
Right, cool. And is it going to take place, I guess, during the days of the 7th and 8th? What day of the month is that, or day of the week?
7th and 8th are what, like a Tuesday and Wednesday, I think. I don't have a calendar in front of me.
Right. I have a calendar in front of me. Looks like a Tuesday and a Wednesday, like you said. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know what time of the day. Maybe as we get closer to the event, we'll know.
Yeah.
Those fine folks are in the United Kingdom.
Okay.
And that is at a minimum 5 hours, upwards of 8 hours, maybe 9 hours, depending what part of the U.S. you're in. So, and then, adjust for that around the globe.
Yeah, it does say 10 a.m. is when it starts wherever they are, right? Doesn't necessarily say what time zone. 10 a.m. till 4:20, so I guess till 5.
Oh, interesting. So when you look at the schedule, that's new. They didn't have that when I looked. I think they were getting the website up when I made this a pick. So from me, it says 7 a.m. on the 7th.
Oh, okay.
So that implies that they're doing the local time zone for you.
Right.
Mine also says 7 a.m.
Mm-hmm. So it is adjusted for real
time.
Yeah,
and they actually do have, to give you a better idea of, current stuff they'd be talking about. Engineering management in the time of coronavirus. Very, very timely.
Or Tim, maybe they didn't really want you to come, so they said it was later than it really was, so you could show up.
Yeah.
Trade-offs on the road to observability. So designing effective OKR. So it's about leadership in technology topics. Some of it is more about the people and organizational side of it, and some of it is more about the technical side. Like, how about this one?
Talks are pretty short.
They are half-hour talks for long talks, and then the lightning talks are like 10 minutes.
10 minutes, yeah. Yeah, so they seem to have a 20-minute start, and then a couple of lightning talks, and then they get into the 40-minute talk. talks, right? A couple of panels as well, I guess, so you can have your sandwich while you listen to a panel, right? Interesting. Cool. We'll have to see how this goes,
Near and dear to this show is probably apps, stacks, and frameworks, avoiding shiny object syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I was looking at something interesting over here. Kidding, of course.
This is why we need a Creative Commons or public domain licensed rim shot or something, so we can have the drums, the cymbal play.
Actually, I bought some digital drums. I can fill that in later. Anyway, So what's your next pick there, Jaime?
The next one is for those of you who have kiddos aged 13 and up, and if they are bouncing off the walls as they are unable to go and do their normal schooling and go outside and do things. The fine folks at Gatsby, Gatsby being the static site generator, have created their Gatsby Web Creators series. This is going to happen over 5 weeks. Unfortunately, as of this recording, and by the time this comes out on publication, you probably missed like the first week, but don't worry. They're streaming all these sessions live on Twitch, and then they're recording those for future viewing on YouTube. So you'll be able to catch up. It's 5 weeks on web development basics. So first week is intro to HTML. Second week is on CSS. Week 3 on CSS Project Remix and CSS Animation. 4 is on applied HTML and CSS. And week 5 is introduction to JavaScript and the document object model.
Cool.
Yeah. So you do need to be 13 and over, because in order to do these projects using Glitch is the service that they're using. People need to be 13 or older, probably for Kappa, whatever that
Glitch
law
or
is.
Twitch? Oh, Glitch, I see, right.
Twitch and Glitch.
Twitch and Glitch, okay. All right.
Not on your Switch.
I'm sure you can run Twitch on your Switch.
Who names these companies? There's a brand new company.
Dr. Seuss is like rolling in his grave, yeah.
As a small sidebar, there's a new company that is really a spiritual revival of an old company. So I used to like Screen Hero as the remote pair programming. It was great. It was so slick. Both people could use their keyboard. Both people could use their mouse at the same exact time when you're pair programming on something. Had whiteboarding features, had all sorts of cool, had audio, all sorts of cool stuff. They sold to Slack. Things didn't go so well, I suppose, in terms of making an efficient, effective project. Now, a couple of years later, the founders have created a new company called Screen that does basically the same thing as Screen Hero. It is an ungoogleable name.
Screen, yes. And Screen.so, even worse, right?
Yeah, and the name has made many in the tech community think of GNU Screen. I don't even know what that does. I've not used that. I think it's a Tmux competitor.
There's also an app called Screens, which is for sharing your screen remote, like a remote desktop kind of thing. Like, remember Back to My Mac? Sort of that kind of solution. Yeah. People getting too cute. That's why I remarked this. At least they're using vowels now, Jaime. You remember, like, for a while there we had, like, Flickr and,
Yeah, Flatter.
Rotor and
Twitter's URL used to not have any vowels in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is why I remarked today that we're going to create an app. It's going to be called App, and its URL is going to be app.app.app.
Or app.io or app.app.
I just want the most ungoogleable thing possible.
Yeah, but eventually they become Googleable. That's the beauty of it, right?
Only because Google is really good at figuring that stuff out.
Yeah. So another sidebar. Have you seen the movie Yesterday?
I have seen that, yeah.
Yep.
You have not? Because Google plays a big role in Yesterday, too.
Yeah.
I watched it the other day because, of course, I'm trapped here at home and I had to do something. So I watched Yesterday on our HBO here.
It's a fun movie. I liked everything except the last 1/10 of it. The ending kind of
the music was
let me
good.
down.
Yeah. What the last part where he does the mea culpa part at the end? Or
yeah, it was just kind of wrapped up kind of too nicely. They could have made it a really interesting ending. That this is pretty spoilerish. So if you haven't seen the movie, stop listening now. We'll tell you when you can start listening again. They could have made it really interesting if the people who were trying to track them down the whole time actually showed up with, say, John Lennon and Paul McCartney in tow, saying, "Hey, we've been writing all these songs for years. We never got any we never got signed. We've just been writing them for ourselves. And how'd you get all our songs?" But they didn't go that way, which I thought was disappointing. I thought it was really kind of silly the way they wrapped up the people tracking down. Just like, we just missed the song. Yeah,
those two. Yeah, when they showed up, I thought, they should have been fisticuffs or something.
Right,
Yeah, okay,
exactly.
That's what you're talking about. Yeah. That was
but that and also they could have had Lennon and McCartney show up
Well, they kind of,
They went with the Hollywood ending and not the Black Mirror ending that I thought they were going to go with.
Right.
Well, it's funny, too, because it's Danny, what's his name, that director? Danny, Trainspotting guy, Slumdog Millionaire, Sunshine.
Yeah, that guy.
I recognize all of those movies. I don't have the wildest clue who that person's name is.
Hang on, I'll tell you. I've seen it. I'm a huge fan of his movies, and I was surprised. I watched the movie before I realized it was actually his. Danny Boyle. I thought it was interesting, but I like the way they integrated the whole Google search into it, right? Like, like whenever he orders a Pepsi and that kind of stuff, right?
But that was a paid product placement, right?
Was it?
Of course.
Oh.
I figured it had to be.
Of course. I mean, I don't know 100% for sure, but,
What was the other one? It was that. It was the Beatles stuff, and there's another one, too, that was in there. Mm-hmm. Is it a really entertaining movie? I mean, like I said, the music, they couldn't go wrong with music, right? So
yeah.
Yeah, but what about the part at the end where he's got the big stadium show, and like he would have got fried alive on Twitter in real life, right?
Twitter. Yeah.
Well, all those things would have changed, right? So product placement speculation aside, it would kind of make sense that maybe Coca-Cola would not have remained dominant had it. All right, so you say, well, there's stuff that would have taken place, but if you remove the Beatles, you'd have to unwind everybody who was influenced by them, right?
Yeah, the whole fact that music was pretty much as it is today, except for the Beatles being sing, is just pretty unrealistic. I mean, it would have.
Oh no, I'm thinking about the band from Manchester. That's what I'm thinking of.
Them,
yeah. So that was an interesting play because they channeled the Beatles, right?
Channeled is being quite generous, but yes, that was a fun one.
Okay, they ripped them off. Let's put it that way. I'm just trying to see the comment here. And the guy who played the one Beatle that's in the movie, I don't want to spoil it for people. He's a typical go-to guy for Danny Boyle as a director, and I didn't even recognize him at first. Like I saw the guy and I went, oh my god, that's him, as he would look today, right? But I kind of spoiled it there too. Good movie.
I'm not sure he acted in character.
No. Well, I mean, he wouldn't have been. He was like the whole idea was he didn't become a Beatle, right? So he wouldn't have.
So from what I know about the person, I think had he not been a success, he would have been pretty bitter at that point in life.
That's true.
And angry.
That's true.
Yeah.
But you kind of wonder, like, would somebody like that have become good at what he did anyway? Like, he was such a force in the band, right?
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah.
I was watching an interview, and I'll put a link in the show notes here for John Lennon interviewed, like probably, I don't know if it was near the end of his life, or somewhere in the post-Beatle, like in the mid-'70s, right? And they were asking him about, the questions like, will you ever get together? And, will you ever have a show or whatever? And he sort of, like, at one point he says, I never was worried about Paul, because he knew Paul would survive, and he would continue on, because he didn't need any sort of help, and George would do what George did, and he was glad to see that. He said it was a bit condescending at first, but he thought it was glad to see that Ringo had found a place in the world, right? Which is kind of funny. But the whole idea that he wouldn't have to worry about John or Paul, I should say, right? So because I guess he knew from working with the guy that he was a natural talent, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, Paul was the true musical genius of the group.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because he had his whole dad's background and all that kind of stuff too, right?
Yeah. But
anyway.
I mean, not the other ones weren't musical geniuses as well, but not to the level of musicianship that McCartney. I mean, from a musicianship level, McCartney was just way beyond the rest of them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true.
Songwriting, you could argue.
Well, he proves it to my day, right? Sort of thing.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess my pick is Yesterday, the movie. If you haven't seen it, go see it.
Yeah.
My other pick is I saw on Twitter the other day a gentleman is working on a new book on Combine, and he's doing some really cool thing. The name of the book is Understanding Combine, and it's being written by Matt Newberg, and it's a work in progress right now. So basically, as he works on it, he's publishing it to the internet, to the Google, for free. So you can read through it now. You can try out the code samples, and all he's asking for is a little bit of throw him a bone at a PayPal account that he's got set up here. But for the time being, as he works on the book, it's available free for you to have a look at and take a look at it. So it's I'll put a link in the show notes for that. It covers all the sort of usual stuff about Combine, about publishing, and any kind of, like, it's a React type, language, or what do we call it, framework. So check it out. And, of course, I'm sure he'll be open to feedback if you want to, feed him back some info. Well, that's it. That's Understanding Combine by Matt Newberg, my pick. No comments? All right. He's also got other books, too. Here he's published a book, Programming for iOS 13 and iOS 13 Fundamentals with Swift, which you can also buy. Anyway, so, yeah. Hey, Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you this week, how do they do that?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithAHair.
All right. And Mark, if people want to get in touch with you?
Mark R at smapsoft.com.
All right. And as usual, I am Tim Mitra, TIMMITRA on the Twitter machine is where you'll find me. And so I guess now we're supposed to say, be safe, stay home, wash your hands. But otherwise, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
Bye.
This has been another episode of the More Than Just Code podcast. If you want to find out more about the show, you can visit the More Than Just Code website at mtjc.fm. There you can find a summary and show notes of each episode. We list links to the apps, code, and news that we mentioned on the show. If you like the podcast, tell your friends. Please leave a comment on the website, and if you can, please write a review on iTunes. And please recommend us in your favorite podcatcher. All of these things help others find out about the show. We really appreciate your help with spreading the word. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We'd love to hear from you, so use the hashtag AskMTJC. Once again, the podcast Twitter account is @MTJC_podcast. Please consider supporting the show by pledging any amount on patreon.com/MTJC. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.
Carol was telling me the other day that the new expression is no longer, have a good day or have a good one or whatever. It's now just be safe.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that. Yeah.
The sign outs and goodbyes and stuff, right? Yeah. It's funny, like I was walking a dog. I should have taken a picture, but, I saw a bunch of people sitting in a circle at the park, when you're by where the dog goes. And they were sitting 6 feet apart, in a big giant, like not your typical campfire circle kind of sitting, right? So, and people are like, when they meet each other in the street, they're like standing, across the street from each other and saying hello and whatever, right?
I mean, as well they should.
Yeah, as well they should.
They should, as opposed to here where we're, locking down the state parks and stuff, because people who don't know this, the Seattle area is very rainy and dreary most of the year. So
right. Yeah.
Those rare moments that you have of sunshine, people love to take advantage, and having, nice warm sunshine time coincide with a you need to stay home order has not mixed very well. No, people were being silly and like, oh, let's go for a hike. Everybody else thought that same thing, and they're all collected there in these clumps. I'm like, well, no, that's why we locked it down. Stay home. Listen to the previous 290 episodes of this very podcast.
Yeah, and there's 60 SpockCast ones when you're ready to. After you finish watching all of Discovery and Picard, you can. By the time this show comes out, the finale will have already even taken place. So we'll catch up. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, so we had EB Games, which is like, I don't know, like they have GameStop or something like that in the States. You have like the places where you buy video games. Mm-hmm. Maybe EB Games. I don't know if they're in the States or not. But
yeah, it used to be here as Electronics Boutique.
Yeah, it's same company. They had some sort of game rollout the other day that was like something being released at whatever, and people were standing in line for it, and the cops were just flipping out, like, and the media was all over it, because they were like, obviously they weren't keeping social distance, and they've now done a thing where their businesses, as of yesterday, which is Tuesday night, they were supposed to have closed. Most businesses have to close as decreed by our mayor, and I think as the province, or the premier of the province. People were lined up at the liquor store, and again, they were just like lined up one right after the other, like, get your priorities, right? So of course liquor stores are considered essential services, and so are the cannabis stores. So if you want to get your cannabis, come on up to Toronto and help yourself. But yeah, and I see you interesting point. Harmis just posted something here from the Financial Post that, and this was on the news today actually. I forgot about it actually, that Toronto is gathering cell phone data from the telecoms because they're trying to make make sure that anybody, we've had a TTC subway driver got infected. A couple of, I think one of the bus drivers got infected. So they were broadcasting which bus the guy was driving. In the case of the subway drivers, they're actually in a like a glassed-in space, so you actually don't interact with them. So now they're trying to figure out where these people were, where they went, and who could have come in contact with them. But yeah, it's an interesting story here about the fact that they're using cell data to track. Like we're always complaining about privacy and tracking and things, but now here's a cause for good, I would think, using cell phone data to figure out where people have been. What do you think about that? Yeah? Big can of worms.
It's a tricky one because there is the essential liberties part that is difficult to tease apart from the needs of society.
If you were traveling through the city for whatever reason and you came down with this thing and now you're lying in a hospital, it's kind of like the old, when AIDS and all that kind of stuff first came out, they would ask for a list of people you'd been with, right? Maybe you don't know, but we all know that the phones track where you are in the city and where you've been, right? So they could get the data from the tracking in the phone to see where you are, right? Where you've been. Because, your iPhone does it now, right? It's just that information is sort of kept between you and Apple, or not even Apple, right? Just on your device. It's also a good alibi in case you're convicted of, manslaughter or murder or something, right? You can say, well, my phone says I was here. Meanwhile, you had it attached to the side of your dog as he ran around the neighborhood, right?
Right. It's tricky because it is at the very least an effective tool for this sort of thing. So yeah. I'll take Taiwan as an example. So there are many other factors that have taken part in Taiwan's success in avoiding a huge outbreak, despite the fact that they are right next door to mainland China, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And a big part of it has been their location tracking, right? So
really?
I know somebody who has returned to Taiwan after being sort of on travel throughout the world. Mm-hmm. They were put in an immediate 14-day quarantine, and they are using your cell phone to figure out where you're at. And if you're not at home, they catch you outside, they're going to fine you like up to $30,000 equivalent.
Fine you? Oh, not find you. Fine you. Okay.
Fine you. Well, they will also find you because they call you up like 2 or 3 times a day, some sort of community social worker, just to see that you're home and that you're doing okay. You don't need anything.
This is somebody who's come down with the thing there, or just
this is just somebody who's even suspected of it. And at this point, suspected is like rather broad. In this case, this person is an expat, so Taiwanese citizen has returned home, and they are immediately put under quarantine. Tracking the phone, tracking the location. If you don't answer the phone, or I think they also come to the door and check on things when they deliver new masks and sometimes food and stuff to you. The police will come find you.
Really?
Right?
Wow.
So it's like, if you don't want to stay home, the police will make you stay home there. So that's very different culturally than like the United States in particular, and a lot of individual freedom and rights. So I'm not sure how effective what they're doing would work here culturally. And it's kind of interesting that Canada has decided to cross the line towards that side.
Well, Toronto, not Canada per se, right? Mind you, there's like I said, there are more people in the Greater Toronto area than most of the provinces of the country, right? So, like in terms of population density, right?
And everything that I sort of perceive is that Canada tends to be more sort of top-down, federalist-driven than the United States, which balances a whole lot more towards the states, the individual states.
That's true. That's true. I think, we can. The prime minister can decree things, and the provinces can't really fight against it. Like I guess in the United States, it's more you're a federated collection of states, right? Who have
a federation, one might say.
Yeah. It's interesting too. Like when I look at it, like New York is, I think New York's now the hotbed of the United States, right?
Oh, by a long shot, yeah.
Yeah, New York City, yeah.
By 10x.
Well, they're saying that 30,000. This is as of 2 hours ago, as we record on Wednesday
30,000,
night. 30,000 in New York, and 17 or almost 18,000 just in New York City alone, right? So with 285 deaths, and I mean, we're right next door to them practically. Like we're right next to New York State, right? Like we border New York State along the north edge, right?
Well, there's a big pond in between.
It's not that big. Not that big.
He's saying it's not that great.
You still have to go around it, right?
It's an okay lake, homie.
Send all your angry letters to Tim.
Yeah.
No, I mean the whole St. Lawrence Seaway and the lakes are between us, but New York. I mean, there's like a bridge, like half a mile long bridge between Niagara Falls, New York, and Niagara Falls, Ontario, right? So
right, yeah. But Buffalo is not New York City. Not to knock Buffalo, but
I wonder if there's a fire in the warehouse in Buffalo right now. But that's a joke for
it looks like from the latest map I saw that Detroit was a bigger hotspot than anywhere in upstate New York.
Well, Detroit is also connected to Canada, right?
Right, exactly.
It's right across from Windsor, right?
Right. That's why I mentioned it.
Is that song by Journey the one about the guy from South Detroit? Just a small town boy. Anyway,
Who's Crying Now, but I don't remember the lyrics.
Is it Who's Crying Now?
Isn't it?
I don't know. It's just a small town boy.
Oh no, that's Don't Stop Believing.
Detroit.
Don't Stop Believing.
Don't Stop Believing. Yes, living in South Detroit. Well, South Detroit is Windsor. There is no South Detroit. It just sounds good on paper, right? Anyway, but yeah. So
wait, is Windsor actually south geographically of Detroit?
I think so. I don't know. I heard the other day there is no South Detroit. Let's look it up. Let's look on the map.
That would make sense. You cross the international boundary if you go due south from Detroit, like the city center of Detroit.
They're not. There's not there's a river, but not a large. They're practically touching each other, right? Yeah, Windsor is south of Detroit.
Yeah, it does kind of wrap underneath. It kind of sneaks around. Yeah. How about that?
Yeah, and it's sort of a.
Is that the only place where Canada is south of the U.S., not counting Alaska?
Well, I mean, a lot of like Jaime is north of me right now.
No. I mean,
like as the crow flies.
As the crow, yeah. Well, I guess there's a little bit by Buffalo. A little bit of Canada sticks over underneath Niagara Falls, south of Niagara Falls.
Yeah. See, yeah.
Depending how you want to feel about it. I mean, if you go into Washington State, you can see that Victoria reaches down below the whatever parallel it is that defines Washington State.
49th parallel, yeah.
But yeah, that's a gray area because there's not necessarily any land there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
The San Juan Islands reaching over into Victoria makes it a little weird. It's definitely not like it's more of a nudge than a
Is there still a Vancouver in Washington?
Yeah, there is. It's on the southern part of the state, just across from Portland, Oregon.
Oh, yeah.
I guess a valid way of asking the question is, how many places are there where you can drive south from the United States and be in Canada, except for Alaska? Drive directly south. There's not too many.
Interesting.
We have not much to do while we're here, sequestered at home.
Well, we pull out the maps all the time. It's interesting. I'm looking at a dark mode map right now, which I haven't done in a while because I'm now in the world of Catalina. That's a geography lesson for the day.
Yep.
Oh, this is one. Oh, this is just. I'm just looking at eyewitness news in Buffalo. Do you guys have eyewitness news all over the country? Do you know? Or is that just a brand up in New York?
Kind of a local thing. I think different TV stations have it.
I'm starting to wonder if they're all owned by Sinclair Broadcasting now.
No, maybe. Yeah.
I thought it was like, everybody's like Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute. With media consolidation, it could hypothetically. How come they're not suing each other for the trademarks?
Right. Huh.
Let's Google that. It's a style of news broadcasting used by local television stations in different markets around the world.
Oh, really?
According to Wikipedia.
Huh.
Tim, did you know that Edmonton is really far north? He says,
yes, I did.
Being silly. Like, Seattle is way out in the middle of nowhere as far as the United States goes. Very far north. And Vancouver, BC, very much so.
Yeah.
It is, 1, 2, possibly 3 times the distance between Seattle and Vancouver is Edmonton to whatever the closest border is for the United States. What is that? Some park?
Yeah.
Glacier National Park?
So,
but remember, distances, north-south distances are exaggerated up there.
Oh, the Mercator projection? Yeah, that's probably...
That's probably true. No, it's true. You look at a map, it's 100% true.
Anyway, so Carol and I went to Edmonton once in the middle of winter. It was freezing cold. And we actually went up to Prince George for, if you look over on the British Columbia side, we went to Prince George for a conference, and then we flew from Prince George to Grand Prairie to Edmonton. It was like on a small DC-10 plane, and we got on the plane and we took our coats off and we sat down and we're sitting near the front of the plane, and it should have been a clue for us when the stewardess didn't take her winter coat off, because they fly from Prince George to Dawson Creek to Grand Prairie, and it's pretty much a milk run, right? Like, people come on with their groceries, and so the plane lands, and a couple of these airports are just like a Quonset hut, and you land on the ground, and people get on the plane from the ground, and they open the front door of the plane, and the winter just like blows in, and that's why the stewardess had her coat on the whole time, and Carol and I are sitting there with our shirts and sweaters on and just freezing to death, right? Wondering why we put our coats away, right? But it was a really interesting run. It was like I literally, people were like, they weren't quite bringing goats and chickens on, but they might as well have been. Edmonton, you know.
It's the
Apologies to
Canadian
people for-
equivalent of that, right?
I guess, yeah. They had their cans of maple syrup under their arm.
Exactly, yeah.
I find where Dawson Creek is.
With the little straw thing still in it, right?
Yeah, so we flew from Prince George to Dawson Creek to Grand Prairie to Edmonton, yeah. And then we had to go around the city. We were doing a tour of, it was a dinosaur exhibit that we were doing flags and banners for, and we had to go around, take a tour of Edmonton itself, and it was, oh man, it was so cold. Unbelievably cold. Yeah, those are the days.
I'm poking around the map, and after realizing there are a lot of forts in the Northern Territories, presumably to prevent the Americans from coming in, I guess, through the Yukon.
You looking at the roads?
No, I'm just looking at, like, what are these little dots on the map? And I made my way westward to Alaska, and I did not know that there is a Wales and a York, Alaska.
Really? What's the capital? Is it? It's Anchorage, right?
Juneau.
Anchorage or Juneau, probably.
It's Juneau.
Oh, Juneau. Yeah. So where does, I thought, wasn't the joke that Sarah Palin could see Russia from her house?
Yeah, that's...
Nome?
No, it's a little town. I think it's near Anchorage. What's it called? Wasilla.
Oh, she was like the mayor or something like that?
She was the governor of Alaska.
Oh, governor, okay.
Yeah. Was it Wasilla? Yeah.
Governor.
Wasilla.
Well, look, if you look at Nome, Alaska, it's pretty close to Russia, right?
Yeah, you see, if you can see Nome, you can probably see Wales and Tin City.
I'm not getting as much detail. You on the Apple Maps?
No, I'm looking at Google Maps.
Oh, Google Maps.
As nature intended, man. You got to do.
As nature intended? What, Google?